Greetings and welcome to the new moon of February, which happens to be the moon of the lunar new year, which has a lot of different things coming in. So I think the fact that this moon is so supercharged, so super busy with all the different types of energy that comes in, I think it's a really good kickoff to what 2026 is really going to be all about. So let's start at the beginning with some of the more normal aspects of the February new moon. So this new moon is in Aquarius. And interestingly enough, Aquarius actually is ruled by two planets. It is ruled by Saturn and by Uranus, meaning there is in this moon itself, there are some contradictions and some oppositional energies that are in play because Saturn is very much a traditionalist, very much rooted in, structure and rules. Whereas Uranus comes out of the blue and it's like, hey, I'm here, I'm weird, and let's shake up the world. So we're going to be feeling over the new moon period, which would have started 3 days ago, and after today it's going to be another 3 days ahead. There's going to be a lot of this, clinging to traditions, clinging to structures, but at the same time feeling what's out of sync and trying to find a way to move in that direction that needs to be moved to, so that there's going to be a lot of drive for innovation, a lot of ways of looking at even just our regular routines or schedules and saying this needs to change, and what's the core of it, because it's not about throwing the traditions out, it's not about wrecking everything, it's about looking to see where the kernel of truth is, where the core of everything is, and kind of landing on that, so that that's the energy that we're sitting in. So it's less about living in the duality, living in the opposition of the energies, and it's trying to find what is the core of both that can come together in some kind of beautiful harmony. This is also a time where networking is going to be very important, and to expect the unexpected in the quirky, unusual way that we can be. One of the other things, so that's basically, if this was just a regular moon, that would be what would be coming in. However, we also have the first eclipse of 2026, and so eclipses have a tendency to supercharge the energy here, and this is a really, really good time for us to kind of look at where are we putting our energy, and where are we failing, for lack of a better word, where are we failing to move into the direction. And it's funny because when I was looking at this, I did write down that the eclipse has us dealing with shifts and transformations. And what I said was, I like to think of this as fate, right, is tired of waiting up for us to get to the memo, and has basically come up to us, stuck the ring in our hand, threw us out the door and said, now get going, right? Like, we're tired of just sitting here and waiting for someone else to pick up the adventurer's hat and go off. It is time for us really, really expect that fate is going to be throwing us out into the wilds and saying, okay, you're the adventurer, you're the hero, you're on your journey, and off you go, because there is something that you need to do and you've waited long enough. So that adds another layer, right? So there's this energy that's going in along with that, like, conflicting energy of the Saturn, Uranus in Aquarius, and Aquarius itself just being a planet of, innovation and wanting to change and to see what's there. Now we're going to add in the fire horse that comes in. I am by far an expert at all in any of the Chinese zodiac and stuff like that. I just kind of added this in because I think the fire horse coming in, everywhere I've looked at it, everywhere I've heard of it, this fire horse is going to be shaking the world to the ground, the foundations, right? And so now we're looking at adding strength. And it was funny because my spell checker corrected this. I had put like will horsepower movement, and it is basically separated horsepower from movement. So we've got a lot of horsepower that's coming in, and when you're looking at fire horsepower, it's really moving fast, and it's really going to burn up whatever needs to be cleared away and purified. There's a lot of independence in this, and so that's just a really big load of energy that we've got right now. So if there's anything that you've been sitting on, if there's anything that you're feeling called to, this really is a good time to harness this energy, because it's going to clear away everything that, like, the doubts, it's going to clear away all the contradictions, it's going to clear away all of the hesitancy, and really just open up the pathway for whatever it is that we want to do. Having said that, I shall shuffle our cards so that we can see exactly, well, I guess not exactly. I have three questions here. So we'll have three cards and we'll see what this Aquarian moon is going to say to us. I can feel all the good, all the excitement. And it's interesting because having said that, there's a lot of different innovative ideas that I've got going and percolating, and I'm thinking, maybe this is a good time for me to start to do some kickoffs and put some things out there. So hopefully, if you follow me in any way, that you'll be like going, ooh, I wonder what Leona's up to, because she's always got such weird and interesting ideas. All right. So we'll split this up. Oh, I have one that doesn't want to go in. So we're going to end up with 4 cards. So it'll be interesting to see what this one has to say. All right, so the first card that I'm going to pull is, what do we need to tear down so we can move forward? And it's funny because I just said it's not about pulling everything down. But what this is about is precision destruction, in the sense of there are obstacles, there are things that are in our way that we really do need to tear down so that we can really bring forward the energy and the motivation and the resources to be able to move forward. This is not a surprise in the world that we live in right now, right? So what we're being told, what needs to be torn down so we can move forward, is it's not the grief, right? Because the 3 of Swords is a card of grief. It's the boundaries and the rules and the expectations we have around grief. The world is grieving right now. The world needs almost like a universal grieving time, a container where people can really allow their grief to pour out for all the losses, all the stress, all the trauma, everything, right? Because I look at it this way. When we go through grief, if we have emotions from grief, or if we have anything like that that we refuse to face, that we stop our body from processing, then what happens is it has to go somewhere. It's an energy. It has to go somewhere. And what it does is it reverberates back within our body, and it'll attach itself to our cells. It'll attach ourselves to our DNA. It'll attach itself to parts of us that then start to mutate because it doesn't know what to do with this energy, and it gets stuck and it gets gummy. And so the world itself needs to grieve. And if we think of ourselves as the cells of the planet, then we're little pockets of grief all over. So as a collective, we need to be able to grieve for ourselves, for our communities, for our planet, for the animals, for the flora, the fauna, everything that has been so horrendously abused, so horrendously traumatized. And we need to release this from the collective. And I think that that's going to be something that's really, really going to happen. You can see it in little spurts and in little shifts that the grief is coming to the surface, and we've reached that, I want to say, like the titration point where there's no more grief that can be held within the container, and now it's time to be released. We all need to be able to grieve, and that's going to be a really, really big thing, that this fire horse is going to burn away all of the obstacles and the blocks and the stories that we hold around a traditional way of grieving. We have to start to be more innovative. We have to be more unique. We have to be more unexpected in how we grieve. Our grief is ours, and it is ours to control, and it is ours to process. And so we need to be able to find that courage to be able to sit and allow our bodies to grieve so they can release it and lighten the load that's on the system. It's a very powerful way to start this. The next one is, what historic frameworks need to collapse to make room for transformation? And these are historic frameworks that we're holding space for. And here we have the 8 of Wands. And the 8 of Wands is saying, like, the frameworks that need to be brought down are the ones that are slowing down the system. We can all see that there's little changes, there's little spurts, there's little shivers of what wants to come through. There's healthcare systems that are ready to come through. There's governance that's ready to come through. There's education systems that are ready to come through. And the thing is we have to be willing to let it collapse and let it move out, all the old things, to let them collapse and let them move out. There's no point in fighting for something that is diseased, that is sick, that needs to be released and let go. Right? Like it's sad, but it reminds me of people that have loved ones in the hospital that are on life support, right? And the doctors have told them that there is absolutely no life left in the body, but that the machines are kind of keeping it alive. And so it's time to let it go. And the things that happen when that's allowed to process, as horrible of an image as it is, but when the person is allowed to finally be at peace and to be rest and to be released, it trickles through the whole family, and the family has this universal inhale, right? Because there is grief, there's guilt, there's shame that's all wound up in all of this and wanting to hold on to something. And that's what we need to do with our systems. We need to let them go. And again, like I said at the beginning, it's about finding that core kernel of truth, that core kernel of beauty and love that's there, and bringing that back to the forefront. It's no longer about pride. It's no longer about ego. It's no longer about who can do better than who. It's about how can we get back to the ideas, that the systems, that the frameworks, that the traditions have to get back to love. They have to get back to healing. They have to get back to being whole and not fractured. And that's really, really hard. Once it gets going, though, it's gonna go really, really quickly. And I feel that, the more we look at systems, and the more we look at the way people are interacting with the systems and the injustices, that universal value of the human existence and the human life and the planet itself is becoming more and more part of the mainstream story, mainstream dialogue. The next one we have is, what blocks to your authenticity and autonomy are ready to be removed? And here we have Justice. So here we have a major arcana card, and it seems to me this is fate coming forward, right? Like when I said here's fate throwing out the door with the ring, this is fate, because it's the first major arcana card, and right now it's the only major arcana card that we have. And so what we're looking at is it's time for us to grow up and accept the consequences for our actions. And the consequences for our actions are, the people that are doing the things need to be able to accept consequences for what they're doing. The people who are not doing anything need to be able to accept the consequences for what they're doing. And the people that are watching both sides also need to take responsibility and take the consequences of their actions. Because the thing is when we all can accept the consequences of our actions, then we become a more focused community, we become more focused ourselves. So if I know that if I do X, this is what's going to happen, and I accept responsibility for that, I'm going to be a lot more aware of the actions that I'm taking. I'm going to be a lot more aware of what I'm doing, because I want to live a life that is aligned. I want to live a life where I can be authentic. I want to live a life where I'm living my values and I'm in integrity with what I'm doing. And the longer that I put blame on other people, the longer I play victim, then that's not happening. That's not what I'm building. What I'm building is, a broken system. I'm building a broken nervous system. I'm creating broken stories. And so it's time for us to reclaim our power. And the biggest thing about it is we have to take responsibility for who we are and what we're doing. And that's really, really difficult. Having been in education, especially in the elementary school system for over 14 years, watching the children, whenever they would get into trouble or whenever fights would happen, watching them learn how to take responsibility for what they did is, it really kind of is eye-opening, because a lot of the things that they do, they've learned it from the adults around them. And so when you think about it, we have to be willing to take the responsibility so that we can write a different story for everyone. Now I thought we only had 4, but we might end up with 5. So this one, when I went to go and put the deck all back together, this one popped up. And isn't it interesting that we have the Hierophant here coming up at this time? Because this is, to me, this is kind of both an indication of both of the contradictory themes that we have, right? So here you have on this one, you have the Pope. And the Hierophant is all about tradition. It's all about authority. It's all about control over the indoctrination of people into the socially accepted story, the socially accepted container, right? And so when you're looking at the Hierophant, what we're looking at is we're looking at, again, going back to that core, right? When you look at religion at its core, I should say spirituality at its core, it's about love. And even when you look at religion, the messages in most of the religions are, it's love, right? Love your neighbor, love people, just be a caring and kind and compassionate person. And then people come in and they try to find the power in the love so that they can have power, because then it becomes ego-based. And so it's really difficult for people to separate the idea of being accepted into their faith with the lived embodiment of the morals of what the faith is about. And so there's just a lot of things in this image for me when I look at it that I think, there's a lot of things going on here that are very symbolically representative, right? Like, so if you look at governments, where I live in Canada, it's a democratic government. However, it doesn't feel very democratic, because there's still people that are always feeling like they have the control, they have the power, and it's like, I'm here. Now that I'm here, it's about me. It's no longer about the democratic process and what we want to do and how we want to live so that everyone is supported. I remember reading somewhere, and I want to say maybe it was Japan I was reading about, that government workers in Japan are paid, I think it's around the same or a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, I can't remember the full details, as the highest paid civil servant in the country. And I kept thinking, if our politicians, right, who choose to go, and I always like this, everybody always says, oh, well, that's like what that's what you chose to do, right? So these people that chose to go into politics, if they went into politics for what they really wanted, then if you said to them, okay, we're going to make you work at minimum wage, how quickly would the minimum wage of a country, of a province, of a state, how quickly would it rise, right? Or how quickly would the politicians scramble to get out of those jobs? Because that's telling. It kind of goes back to the story of the 2 women, and I can't remember what king they were in front of. It might have been King Solomon. The 2 women who were fighting over a baby, and King Solomon said, okay, fine, if you're both going to fight over the baby, we'll just chop the baby in half and each of you can have a half. And the real mother of the baby said, no, please don't do that. And that's how Solomon said, okay, well then you're the mother. And so if politicians were kind of treated the same way, where it's like, you know what, you have to put your money where your mouth is, it would be really different. And it would be able to put the institution, right? Like when we look at here, like it's an institution, it's a system, and it would be able to put it back on even ground. It would be able to put it back into the role it's meant to be. And the reason I say I think we have an extra one is when I went to go and grab the Hierophant, my hand hit the deck and this other one card tumbled off, which is the Ace of Swords. And so I think this is a beautiful way to end our reading for the new moon in Aquarius with the eclipse and the fire horse, because what this is saying is that this is the time to write new contracts. It's the time to write new stories. It is the time to clean up our language and be clear and precise and laser focused on what it is that we want to build, to accomplish, to say, to be, to do. Everything will come down to how we express ourselves. That's and it's interesting because Justice and the Ace of Swords, to me, I feel carry a very similar energy. They're very, very potent. And we have, and then with that we have 2 swords in here, so we're really looking at allowing ourselves to express ourselves as authentically as possible and really allowing ourselves to be who we are without having to conform to someone else's rules, someone else's container, someone else's script. Take responsibility for who we are, what we're doing, and be who we want to be in the world so that we can be the example that our children will see. Having said that, that's quite a lot of energy, that's quite a lot of change, and I think that that's really what this new moon is all about. It's about coming in with big lessons, big energy, and big challenges, and seeing if I shake this ground, who's going to be able to still stand and what's going to rise to the top, right? Like, so if you're looking like gold panning, if I'm sitting here and I'm shaking the sand, where's the precious gems that are going to be left? And it's time now for those precious gems to really take center stage. So I'm excited to see what I'm going to do with this energy and this world that we're coming into. And I'm definitely excited to see what everyone else is going to do with this energy and this excitement. So I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing you around the webs. Take care.